Hey, good afternoon. Just finishing up some good work here in Dallas, Texas, and just wanted to share a couple of thoughts with you. My wife and I go to dinner every month with Art. He's 106 years old, will be 106 years old September 21st. It's really inspiring being around this guy because you see him walk out of his condo. He walks out with a cane, but he's only been using a cane for about a year. And so, this is the guy that moves pretty darn good for 106 years old. He gets in the car, puts his seatbelt on, always has a kind word for each of us. And then he starts asking us about us. How was our day? How are the kids? How are you two doing? So it's really uplifting to be around him. He's just so enthusiastic and just kind words. And my wife loves to get him talking about the past and the early days. And as we were driving down the road, she said to him, "Art, tell me about those early days when you got started in the insurance business." And think about this. He sold his insurance business for millions of dollars and is now giving a lot of money back to the community and just a very philanthropic guy. But he starts talking about selling insurance door to door for 2 and 3 days at a time down in Southern Ohio. And she said, "Well, Art, wasn't that really difficult and tough?" And he goes, "Yes, it was. It was during the Depression." And he said, "Very, very difficult." He said, people didn't have a lot of money. And there I was knocking on the door trying to sell him something. And you could see at that point he almost got lost in his thoughts. And he was just saying, he said, "I do remember," he says, "a night like tonight," he said, "the sun was just kind of setting." And he said, "I was demoralized." He said, "I was really, really discouraged." And he said, I was having a hard time making my car payment. He said, just trying to keep food on the table. We had a baby that was coming. He said, it was just a very discouraging time during the Depression. And he said, as I was driving down the road, and he kind of shook his head, he said, "I hate to even say this." He said, "but I thought about driving my car into a tree." He said, I just about given up. He said, I couldn't sell a thing. And he said, I was just figuring, what good am I? What good am I doing out here? He said, I'd be worth more money, dead. He said, what a terrible thought that was. I said, well, Art, how did you overcome that? I mean, how have you become, as successful as you are now? And, what did you do then? And he said, I'll tell you. He said, I just really thought, I sat there and thought for a minute, the coward's way out. He said, I wanted to see my baby. He said, I wanted to see that young person grow up. And he said, I just knew that, anything would be better than me driving that car into that tree. He said, what a terrible thought that was. And he said, I guess I just knew I had to get up the next morning and try again. And I'll tell you what, that inspired me. That, it can be as simple as that, and yet as difficult as that sometimes, is just get up the next morning, try to forget about yesterday, and put one foot in front of the other and get after it. I hope you've had a great week. I hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you next week. This is Pete Kunk, Built to Lead.